Alright, hey everyone. I don't know, so I'm here to kind of do a deck building guide for 1 AP Earth Blast Ariane. As you can see, I kind of have the basics in here, but I guess I'll kind of go over my how I would build the deck, and what you can do when you've seen a deck list, and I guess how to build a deck and modify other deck lists that you've seen online or something else, and adapt it to your own playstyle, or more specifically, your own rating division. I guess it's more appropriate. Um, so I guess let's go over the kind of like the most important parts of the deck. So obviously, 2 Earth Blast, 1 Earth Wave is the minimum for your burst combo. This is how you're gonna win your games. You want to play Earth Blast for a whole ton of damage, and then followed up with either another Earth Blast or an Earth Wave. Of course, this is how you want to close out your game, and this is your main combo that you want to end your game with. So it's very important to this is kind of how you build the rest of your deck. Now, to get to this end game, you need to have two specific conditions fulfilled. First, you need to have a lot of gold, or else like this is 6 gold, this is 5 gold. That's not free. It's not like, oh, I can slap these down whenever. And the other thing is these cards require you to have a sizable amount of support cards in your hand, which means you're gonna need card draw to fill up your hand. So I've thrown together some cards that I find every single Earth Blast deck will run regardless of variant. And of course, this is kind of going through my thought process on how to build this deck, and I'm basically starting from the very beginning. So here we have card draw, and one thing that I want to specifically point out with card draw is with card draw, you really want to have the cards to work with, because what I find as an Earth Blast Ariane player is it's not even about the Earth Blast that makes the deck so incredibly strong, but instead it's that it always has plays. There is almost never a turn that goes by without you having some sort of a play. And that is very important, because what happens is you want to be able to maneuver yourself, and if you have 8 to 10 cards in your hand at the start of your turn and your opponent only has 6 or 5, that just means you have almost twice as much options as your opponent. You might only have 4 slots to work with. You might not even use all 4 slots, but you have more choices to make. You can choose to do this or do something else. For example, if in my main build I run the ship engine, so 50 ship Mufasa, Ghost Ship, and Fishing Trawler. So in a game where I'm playing against someone who I know is extremely aggro heavy, I would opt to mulligan for Fishing Trawler, and since I know that my combo of double Earth Blast will for sure be able to knock out my opponent, I don't really have to rush them down if I'm able to set up a fishing trawler in the early game and get a bunch of monkfish and just be like, you can't kill me, and I'll just sit here and stock up on resources. Whereas against another deck, maybe a mirror match, for example, I know, hey, I need to really race my opponent, right? Where in that case, maybe fishing trawlers, not that useful. Ghost ship may be better. So in that case, I would choose to use ghost ships. And in situations like these, um, the power of this deck really shines in that it just has cards that can really help you out in a lot of different situations. Um, so I'm just going to go over what I feel are to be the most important parts. So first off, most important is your end game. Obviously, without these, there's no point in running this deck. Um, Next up, I feel what's really important is card draw because you really want to have a lot of cards in your deck in your hand, and having those cards gives you options. And in my personal experience, what seems to be the most efficient and effective method of card draw and filling up your hand and giving you options later is burnt meat. It is 3 gold, and but it draws you 4 cards, which means you're paying roughly less than 1 gold per card. Of course, with Wizard's Mind Bomb, you're getting an even better deal, but it comes with health costs, and depending on the meta, of course, yeah. And another option, if you don't have burnt meat, is of course Restoration Potion, which of course in the current meta is actually pretty good, considering it's got 5 health to supplement your defense. So if you are playing against a aggressive deck, um, that might be useful. And personally, I find that 2 Mind Bomb, 2 Burnt Meat is plenty enough to get me started on most games, and usually I just need to maul hard for these cards in particular because you want to draw during your turn. You want to hit either 6 to 7 cards. If you go over, you're more or less wasting card draw because you draw 3 at the start of turn, and if you have a lot of cards in your hand, you're missing out on those draws, and you're kind of wasting your resources. So I find uh, Wizard's Mind Bomb and Burnt Meat to be sufficient. Um, Now, if you are requiring more draw, Ariane also has access to one of the best draw creatures in the game. According to most people, I feel this is also really good. I personally think White Wolf is comparable because of the gold drop, but the health cost wise, there is very little cards that can actually compare with Skeletal Peon, which is just straight up draw 2 cards, which is really, really strong. Um, in any case, if you do elect to use Skeletal Peon, do know that, of course, that means potentially you might dead draw it. I personally don't feel it's needed, but you might find otherwise. So the next thing after we have our card draw is we need to be able to play these card draw cards. So of course Penguin Sheep is kind of just the card that everyone uses because you pay 1 health, you pay 1 base attack, and you get 5 gold. And for Ariane, when you're playing this, there is absolutely no drawback to playing Penguin Sheep because it actually opens you up to play one of, if not the most cost-effective damage cards in the game, which is Wind Surge. And if you don't have this card, go craft it. It's really cheap, 60 shards. It's not that much. So now we have basically the core of the deck. This is generally what most people play, and then afterwards, next up, you need gold. How you get this gold depends entirely on, I guess, what cards you have. If you're just starting out, you probably won't have a lot of the more expensive cards, and of course you don't have to have a lot of the more expensive cards to make this work. For example, one thing that a lot of people use is alchemy. So what alchemy does is you blow up a weapon and you gain some gold. Of course, people usually combo this with a creature called Calcite Worker, and um, which gives you 2 gold and also gives you a weapon. Of course, in this build, as I said earlier, maybe you don't want to have so much creatures because you do want to have, you really don't want to have a lot of creatures in your draw and eventually clogging up your combos in the late game. So it is really up to you. However, one thing to note is both Calcite Worker and Alchemy are both in the base set. So this means which is empty. So this means you don't actually have to go spend anything to get these cards. So with that said, it is really up to you if you want to run it. I personally, there is another card that I would like to run if I do choose to run this, and that card is not this card, Red Chimp. This one. What this does is it deals a little bit of damage to your opponent, and that makes it so it's not completely useless. You can, and it's 1 gold for 2 damage, which isn't the most amazing, and of course, but damage is damage, and sometimes a little bit of chip damage here and there does make a world of difference. So, yeah, depending on how you want to do it. So, for my example, let's say I am starting out and I would like to run alchemy. So I'm going to stick to alchemy in here. I'm going to go and stick, oh my, I'm losing my place. So I'm going to stick 2 Gika and 1 red chimp, 1 red chimp, and I will actually also run uh, 1 copy of Calcite Worker. Of course, you can tweak the ratio to your preference. Um, this is completely untested, of course, but I just find that the more creatures I have, the more shaky it gets, and most people would agree that for 2 copies of Alchemy, it would be best if you run 4-ish weapons. And the great thing about Geeka is it costs 0 to play, which means you can Geeka into Alchemy. It's not extremely gold efficient, but it'll do. But of course, another card, actually, I don't think that is what I'm going to do, but one thing that everyone runs is Alamorasane because it is literally free gold. There is nothing wrong with that. So Another card that you can elect to run is Mimic. I am actually going to run Mimic in this build because it is almost free for gold. It is 5 health for 4 gold. The good thing about Mimic is there is no condition. You can just slap this down and go. The bad thing is it is very, very iffy in a aggro matchup. So if you find yourself in an aggro matchup, this is gonna make your life a lot harder. So of course we have, I'm not going to elect to play Alchemy because I really don't want to have more creatures than just Penguin Sheep. So I want this to be a 28 support deck. So right now we have Mimic, Clairvoyance, and Alamoricine as our gold gain, and we probably need more gold gain. But since I am running Mimic, I do feel that it's quite important for me to be able to stay alive. So immediately I'm going to throw into Cabbage, uh, and in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw into Dark Crab as well. So this way I'll just have a bunch of heal options to me, and of course Ariane also has access to a few other cards that gives her gold, Gnome Healer namely being one of them. Um, One thing that you can elect to do is run Gnome Healer over Cabbage, and I would totally do that, but I don't want to spend the 120 to craft this, so depending on what you're doing, maybe it's a worthy investment to play Gnome Healer, maybe it's not. So, but one thing is, Gnome Healer is actually very good in that it also gives your opponent heals. You might think, isn't that bad? But here's the thing, Gnome Healer doesn't really matter if you heal your opponent, if you're gonna burst them for, say, 32 damage anyways. If you're gonna do that, they can be at full and they can be at like 28, they can heal to full, and you're gonna kill them anyways the turn after, so why the heck not, right? So depending on how you feel about gold, you might elect to run this card. Next up, we have basically everything that we're mostly going to need. We have a gold gain in Mimic, Clairvoyance, Penguin Sheep, and that's mostly it, actually. And potentially Gnome Healer. Um, and then we have our endgame combo, and then we have a lot of card draw. So, what do we do with the rest of the space? And this is up to you. For me personally, as I was saying earlier, you have so much room for just creativity here. If you find that you're losing a specific matchup, put in cards that would help you in that matchup from what you have. For example, a lot of people like Sedrador because Sedrador can just sometimes straight up win you games, sometimes it can just do amazing wonders for you. Some people like to run more gold gain and um, stuff, and I'm actually going to put in Ring of Chaos because it is, although it's not technically gold gain, it functions as gold gain in most situations, assuming whatever comes after it is something of cost 3 or more, for example, a burnt meat. So in that sense, a Ring of Chaos is 3 gold gain. And actually most decks do elect to run Ring of Chaos. Uh, so now we have around 7 cards of free space to work with. Depending on your build, you might choose to run, for example, Pirate Hideout into Barker Toad. That is something that's quite common. You might choose to run something more defensive. Maybe you want to run Adamant Armor. Maybe you want to run uh, Cake, Rock Cake. That is all very viable. Maybe you want to run Bar Fight, for example. I actually really like running Bar Fight because Bar Fight has straight up won me various multiple games just by removing a weapon and making my opponent tank whatever it is that they need to tank. Another thing is, because of this build, I'm actually not very fast in comparison to some of the other builds. I have Cabbage, I have Dark Crab, I have Mimic, I have like just a lot of defensive cards. As a result, when I play against other faster combos, I feel like I don't really have that much steam um, or power to just straight up go go turn one, get card, get gold, card draw. Turn two, get gold, card draw. Turn three, slot one, Earth Blast, slot two, Earth Blast, and win, right? That is not something that's very common in this deck. In fact, some decks, they build their deck specifically for getting turn 2 or turn 3 kills, and for those decks, they will usually optimize it a lot more, and they wouldn't have, maybe they wouldn't have as many Dark Crabs, they probably would not have any Cabbage at all whatsoever, and so on. So for this deck, I feel like I'm playing a lot more defensive with this build, and as a result, I think I have time to set up for options, and Bar Fight is a great card in that. So the next thing I want to counterplay is armor, and depending on where you are, people will use armor a little bit differently. For example, if you are in, I can't say much for the other rating, but personally, I'm in Platinum Diamond. I just got to Diamond today. And people, they usually know how to play against 1 AP Ariane, and they usually will stack some armor, and in my case, I find that Divine Storm is a very good counter to armor stackers. For you, maybe you're in a lower rank, and people just, they're like, okay, this guy is going to armor a lot. I'm just do a lot of damage. I'm just gonna rush armor straight from the get-go, and boom, boom, boom. Maybe Fire Surge is more of your thing. So for me, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm actually gonna run 2 of Divine Storm and 1 of Fire Surge. This way, I cover both my bases, and I don't really have to worry about, oh, are they building armor? I'm gonna build a lot of armor, and then I just have no way of getting through it, or maybe they're just gonna not build enough armor to make Fire Surge worth playing. So I'm going to play 1 copy of Fire Surge and 2 copy of Divine Storm, and now we have a lot of options to us, right? We have options against armor, options against aggro, options against a lot of things. So one of the big things that I always consider when I build decks is, what are my options against the mirror match, right? So for this specific case, the mirror match, there's a lot of different ways to counter the mirror match for it. Uh, In a combo deck, there is generally you have one shot at the combo, which is you do this once, you blow all of your resources, and you kind of just sit there and waddle around, right? So, depending on where you are, that might be true, that might not be true. My thought is, against aggro, I'm set. I have cabbage, I have dark crab, I have, um, and that should be able to help me survive long enough to get enough resources to counterattack. Um, if I'm playing against, say, sustain, I have options in Divine Wind and Fire Surge that I can counteract their armor. If I'm playing against, say, a combo deck, what is my goal? If it's Linza, I can hope to grief their weapon, but what if I'm playing like an actual mirror, right? What are my options against that? And I feel like, personally, my go-to solution is Ghost Ship. Ghost Ship prevents the combo from killing you on combo turn, and if they aren't going to combo you on combo turn, then you have a fair chance of discarding their combo pieces, which I find to be very important. So that's what I'm actually going to do. But if, for example, say you don't have ghost ships, what are your options then? So against the mirror, what you want to do is, if you can't prevent the combo, your next best option is to survive the combo, right? So, um, one thing that I find that really helps in surviving the combo is heals. So I'm actually going to pull up um, this card, Fishing Trawler. So it adds 3 copies of Monkfish to your hand. The good thing about this card is that if you play this, you are extremely safe against aggro decks, because they just will have no possible way of bursting you down. If you just third slot or last slot a Monkfish every single turn from chapter 2, 3, and 4, um, against an aggro deck, that will just make it so it's incredibly hard for them to kill you. Of course, if you are playing in the mirror, you can say, okay, chapter 1, fishing trawler, chapter 2, they're probably not going to go after you. Chapter 3, dark crab into monkfish. Chapter 4, monkfish. Chapter 5, go for your own combo, right? If you make it to chapter 5, chances are they've either already comboed you, or they have no real, and that you survived, or it's going to be come down to who gets what combo off first, right? So of course, this is my personal choice for uh, survival against the mirror match if I don't have all the resources. So this is going to be my build. Another advantage of this card is it also doubles as a way to fuel your Earth Blast. Say, for example, you have used a lot of card draw, you ran into someone who ghost shipped you, and you're really hurting for cards, and you need to combo them. You can play Fishing Trawler, fill up your hand some more on the start of your turn, and you'll have enough cards to fuel an Earth Blast. So this is just an example deck. Of course, a Fire Surge, maybe not the best choice for me because of my rating, and because of the number of players around. For you, maybe Fire Surge is a better choice. Um, of course, you might be thinking, what about this card? Isn't this card like just the best card? No. For one, this card, Wind Strike, you might need it every now and then to finish off a kill, but I find efficiency-wise, it's not that useful. Sedrador, depending on your rating, it could win you a lot of games or it might just completely whiff. In my rating, people expect Sedrador and they play really safely around starting chapter 2 so they don't eat random Sedradors when they don't have to. And it's really hard to actually get a good Sedrador off. So I find generally this card is not that good. But of course, if you are in a different rating, say silver or gold, definitely Sedrador is a good card. That said, there's a lot of other cards that you can run. Divine's Shield Dome is odd, but of course it is an option. Spell books, they're generally really expensive and I would not elect to run them. So yeah, this is generally how I would go about building a deck. Of course, if you have different cards and they fill kind of similar roles, definitely do give them a try as well. Stack of Sharks is a card that a lot of people do elect to run. I personally find it a bit too inconsistent. It's a great tool against heavy aggro, but I feel like you kind of end up relying on guessing if your opponent is going to aggro you or not. Because a lot of times, if you're playing against aggro, I find they're gonna not really do that much until they're gonna poke you down to just above mortal and then in one turn just end you from there. So how you decide to do this is up to you. I know another one that people do love running is, what's another card that I see often that I don't really agree with? Um, I think a Stack of Sharks is the only card in that generally a lot of people run that I don't find is really useful. So this is going to be my Earth Blast deck. So I'm going to call this Demo Blast. And of course, no. So, I have the deck and I'm gonna go play. Of course, my rating is too high to take an unoptimized deck in, so I'm actually going to just play casual, unfortunately, to kind of show off how this works. So everything, I guess, from what I said is going to be, you really want off the beginning to get card draw. You want your options open and you want a lot of options. The more options you have, the better your chances of not getting completely destroyed are. So right now, the most important thing of building this deck is testing. So in this opening hand, I actually
Looks
really
like I'm
like it.
going
I
fast.
have card draw, I have a lot of gold gain, and I actually don't need this, and I don't need this. These two are great cards, but I feel like doubling up on good cards aren't really gonna do you much, because I'm not going to be able to play this till next turn, and by the time it gets to next turn, I don't know. I might keep bringing Karos because I feel like maybe I can use it for something, but I feel like right now, um, my goal is to maybe get a fishing trawler so I can have the option to heal. So now my cards come in, I actually pick up a even better draw card than Wizard's Mind Bomb. So what I'm going to do immediately is I'm going to, as the first player, I know here I'll gain 5 gold, here I'll gain at least 2 gold, which means here I should be getting, these will break even, so I should walk away from this turn with at least a 7 gold, and I'll be dropping down to 1 AP, which means Wind Surge comes online, I'll get 4, goes up to 6, draw 3 at the start of turn, that means 9
I'm
cards,
ready.
which means I have 9 cards worth of options next turn on top of having 7 gold. So that is, I find to be very important, moving in from next turn to the turn after. So for so sometimes you don't even need to have the Earth Blast in your opening hand, and this kind of really illustrates that. Um, of course, this is a style I'm much more familiar with, and of course, uh, given that my deck has a lot of defensive options in Cabbage, in Dark Crab, if my opponent is running an aggro focus deck, then chances are I'm probably not going to be in too bad of a position. And after the draw, I'll probably have at least one
Welcome.
heal in hand, if not more. And yeah, my opponent has just elected to not do anything. I'm really not sure. So if we look at what we drew with this, we got Fishing Trawler, which Fishing Trawler, Earth, Wave, and as I was saying, some heals. So this gives us options if my opponent is electing to go for aggro, which they have not shown anything so far. So we're actually going to do some damage to them. I don't want to play Divine Stone right now because I feel like it's not a good use of my gold, and right now I don't know if what my opponent's gonna do. I have a feeling that my opponent's either AFK or bricked. Um, so right now I don't actually have to make any aggressive plays. So I'm going to Wind Surge and I'm going to preemptively play a Cabbage. The good thing about playing a Cabbage here is it costs 0 gold, it costs me nothing, I go down to 7, which means I'll draw up to full next turn anyways, so
I'm
this I
ready.
feel is a really good setup. And of course, this is what I mean by I have options. I don't have to do this if I don't want to. I don't have to do that if I don't want to. But I have the options to react to my opponent. Um, Unfortunately, I feel like my opponent is probably AFK, so I think I'm probably just gonna speed through this game and then go find the next opponent. Okay, I don't think this is very educational. I'm just gonna forfeit to this guy. Have fun, you get your win.
I've more
I'm
training to do.
actually just gonna go and play another one. That was not very fun. So, yeah, back to the queue. So this time we're against Ozan. Hopefully Ozan is not AFK this time. That would be unfortunate if this guy is, but let's go. So against Ozan, I feel like Ozan is probably gonna weapon
Seconds will
up,
do me
so
just fine.
I do want to keep bar fight. Ozan sometimes would like to gain armor, so we want that too. Dark Crab, Ozan sometimes Ozan is aggressive and goes aggro. Sometimes Ozan is AP and we want this. This we definitely want to keep. I don't know about Fire Surge and I'm not too sure on damage right now, so I feel like I'm okay with mulling 2. I feel like it's better to have more cards. So, um, options came in, options for days. I feel like
My time for
I actually
preparation
want to
runs
do
low.
this because I'm losing 6 health here if my opponent is electing to run aggro. I do feel like it's very important to gain some health, but this is 4 gold, so we're walking away from this turn at max hand with 5 gold, which is not a terrible first turn, but it's very good that we've drawn a bunch of cards, which means we're going to be able to have a really strong next turn. So now, Mimic. So this takes us down to perfectly exactly enough for the Dark Crab actually, so it just gained 6 health. We broke even on health, so unless our opponent does something, which they don't, they're just gonna weapon up, which I'm completely cool with actually. So a good thing we didn't actually go with the bar fight. I was really expecting this person to put down something big, like weapon into Kazakh or something. Good thing I didn't do that. Unfortunately, we drew another penguin jeep. That's not the end of the world. Our opponent did not gain any AP, so I have a feeling our opponent here is going to try to hit something for and make use of this 4. I feel like potentially I would, if I were him, I would go first slot.
I'm
What's the
ready.
guy that steals 4 health from the next guy, and then the next guy would be something like something with 6, like skeleton champion or something. So that is my guess for what my opponent is planning to do here. So I'm actually going to slot 1 Wind Surge, slot 2 Bar Fight. Um, Actually, I'm gonna slot 3 Bar Fight. Because I feel like going second, my opponent might want to equip a weapon in the 3rd slot, going into 4th slot. And we're not really wasting any draws, and we're getting some gold out of it here. So, okay, that's good. So we're getting even more gold out of our, oh my, so that was unfortunate, for him that we decided to do this.
Here,
Romney,
have
so
these
yeah,
pies.
heal up, that's pretty good. Romney
Here,
again,
have these
that's
pies.
totally fair actually. And as you can see, this is why we don't Earth Blast randomly early. Well, we should have, but one thing is people will
Welcome.
run
Get
heals.
good
If you
swigger.
burst them down early and you don't have any follow-up plays on a turn that they don't decide to do something silly like face tank a giant ogre, it's not going to turn out very well for you. So, judging from this situation, my opponent has 15. I know that if I know I have no more creatures in the deck. That's my last creature.
I'm
I can
ready.
go Mind Bomb, Earth Blast, and that would be 20 damage. So my opponent would need to, in 2 slots, go 20. And the thing is, I feel like I should do
Welcome to your
this,
service, friends of
so I
Malkuth.
would have at least some follow-up play the turn after, which is very important to me. So if I draw some gold gain out of 3 here and 1 at the start of the turn, I should be fine, and this is still KO, assuming that this actually hits. So my opponent has not elected to heal for anything, so there we go. So we drew Mimic off those draws, and my opponent of course did not elect to heal on this turn, which means they are taking 18 to the face, from Earth Blast, which will kill them. Um, so of
That
course
was not as difficult as I predicted.
this is how I would play this deck. Of course that wasn't like a first turn kill or anything. It was pretty usual turn 3, turn 4. Um, so you really have to play around what your opponent has and kind of be inside their brain and be like, okay, my opponent needs to do this, and what are the chances of them doing that? And kind of just play ahead of your opponent, right? So kind of read what they're trying to play, and you can infer a lot of this from the hero they play. So we're against an Ozan again, and I have a feeling that this Ozan, I don't know actually, I'm actually not sure what this Ozan is going to carry. I know for sure I do
Looks
not
like
want
I'm
double
going
Earth
first.
Blast. I think I do want this, I do want this. Ring of Karos, I think I'm going to keep Karos. If for some reason I draw into burnt meat, I can Karos burnt meat, and then play something. I don't want Wind Surge right now because I don't have Penguin Sheep, and the chances of drawing into Penguin Sheep off Mulligan is not that great, so it might just be a dead draw. Of course, this is exactly what I'm talking about, burnt meat. I want to put this here, put this here, put this here, and with 3 cards in hand, 4 off here, 3 at the start of
My
turn,
time for
I go to
preparation
full.
runs low.
So this should gain me at least 2, around 2, at least 2 gold, and a full hand, which I feel is pretty good. My opponent has elected to go full aggro on my face, so good thing we drew a cabbage there, which is gonna put a little bit of hamper on my opponent's plans. One important thing to note is my opponent is playing aggro, so chances are they might trade their life for damage to our life. So right here we have a cabbage, we have dark crab, all we need is to draw a fish controller and we're so good. Or we can just draw all of our sustain. I'm gonna put these 2 here, so do I expect my opponent to equip a weapon? That's another question.
I'm ready.
Actually, I'm going to assume my opponent is going to equip a weapon second slot, and I will Dark Crab in case I'm wrong. So in this scenario, I gain 3 gold, I gain 2 gold, so I gain 4 gold, and it's not great, but it's not bad by any
Welcome.
means. Oh,
It is good to see you again.
so my opponent is very much trying to counter my play. So my opponent has a lot of gold hate. Yeah, my opponent has not equipped a weapon. If they did, this would have been really good. But they're taking a lot of free damage. Which is why we have Dark Crab at the end here to mitigate some of that. As you can see, our opponent is really having a hard time keeping meaningful damage on us. And this is what I mean. My opponent, oh, perfect. I draw a Penguin Sheep. I'm gonna need this. I probably want this. So this would put my opponent down pretty low. Actually, I can do this. So this right here is going to be
I'm ready.
really risky, actually. I am in range for a potential kill, but if my opponent does not kill me,
I might not have enough gold.
oh, not one card draw will occur. So I'm gonna do this. If my opponent gold reefs me, I can... Next turn, I might be able to pull something out, but I will still be at 10 cards next turn. And yeah. So my opponent has not done anything to us. Good thing. So we have just enough perfect gold for a KO if our opponent doesn't. Oh, our rival is actually giving us gold, which is making things even easier. So yeah. I'm not. Oh, there you go. My rival is healing. They. Oh, they are not within outside of KO range. So, yeah, there you go. Anticipate what your rival is going to do and kind of play around it. That's what I feel to be
It
the most
is as
powerful
I
aspect of
foresaw.
this deck. And really how far you make with this archetype is entirely based, I feel, on how well you're able to call the meta around your rating and how well you're able to play around where your opponent has, make plays off reads your opponent is going to do, and if you are in a rather restricted rating, for example, platinum, if you just keep playing at a off time, you'll find that there's a lot of times there just isn't a lot of people on, and you kind of just like, okay, I'm playing against this guy over and over and over and over again. Um, I'm pretty sure this guy will always try and do this on this turn on or open this way, and you can really take that, make that into an advantage. Like as you can see, over the past few games, it's really about playing around your options and making the most of it. Hopefully you kind of learned something from this video. If at the very least, you should be able to kind of figure out how to play against this. Pro tip, Scarface Pete is really good against this deck because you're not only potentially taking away the major win condition, you're also taking away options, and that is so powerful against this deck. So, hopefully you have fun. And if I sound whispery to you, that's because I'm half whispering. People are actually asleep here. I don't want to disturb them. So yeah, hopefully you learned something. If you want me to cover how to play my build specifically, or how to play against this deck in more detail, or something, I've been playing this deck for so long. It's not even that long considering I've started like a month and a half ago playing this game in general. So if you got questions, feel free to comment below or comment somewhere else or message me on Discord or do whatever. But yeah, if you feel you want to pick up this deck, play this list, go ahead. It's not the best list, but it's not by far not the worst. So yeah, have fun with this, and I'll see you all next time if there is a next time.